Have you ever really loved a show just for it to turn into a dead horse they keep beating? Or a game that eventually turned into a corporate greed machine? Or most importantly, a character just for them to turn into an empty husk of a man with no personality, just a complete bomb? This is what we call the art of falling off. And I have personally experienced this many times, especially when it comes to One Piece. You know, that tiny indie manga this channel is about. So I'm here today to find out which character in One Piece really fell off the hardest. And these will just get worse as we go on. But before we get to the top candidates, we gotta hit a little warm up, get the blood flowing, you know. Let's talk about Brownbeard, aka Shadros Hygelius.
What did you say?
How the f do you pronounce that? I bet you didn't expect to see him here. But think about it. He was introduced right in the wake of Whitebeard's death, taking over some of his old territory, like a real big shot. And most importantly, he had beard in his name. He was part of the legendary dynasty. Every beard character had been very important up until that point. And he even had a distinct laugh. All the stars were aligned. So 11-year-old me sat there thinking, wow, this guy might become a real threat in this new era Blackbeard was yapping about. Embrace yourself, maybe even an emperor. Can you imagine that now? It's hard, because in reality he was crippled by the lamest supernova Hawkins and reduced to a desperate test subject on Punk Hazard. He hit rock bottom, got saved by Luffy, his whole crew was wiped out, and his final move was turning himself into the Marines. Pretty tough, bro. Next up we got Akainu, and even though I never liked him, I can admit that he used to be him. Back in Marineford he was moving like Randy Orton in 2009. On your soul, we all thought Marineford would be destroyed when Yosu threw that iceberg. But Mr. Aura Farmer-in-Chief, he stood up and turned that ice into chopped up pieces, ready to serve. And he wasn't just physical, he must have read the 48 Laws of Power, because he used that dark psychology to turn Squad against his own allies. And no, Squad definitely wasn't a complete imbecile that just took Akainu's word for it. You don't understand the genius behind Akainu. And after a dominant showing during the whole war, he put on some YNW melly and showed us a masterclass in rage bait, which resulted in a donut to be served with the icy drink. Damn, I actually feel bad for joking about Ace. I might not be seeing those pearly white gates, gang. Even when he got brutalized by Whitebeard, he still looked tough. He took it like a champ and even managed to split his mustache in half. But when Shanks suddenly spawned in and blocked his attack, that's when his stocks just started falling. You could never guess how many families have gone bankrupt since. His last real feat after that was of course beating Kuzan, and he deserves credit for that. Yeah, give him some applause, guys. But ever since, he hasn't left his desk. I mean, how comfortable can that desk be? Does he have some custom deluxe edition Mega Pro massage chair, or what's the deal? What I do know for a fact is that it's got a giant button reading Send Kizaru. This poor guy has been working overtime ever since Akainu got promoted. They even pushed the poor guy to tears. Akainu's been treating his workers worse than Mr. Bezos himself. Every time we see him, he's just mad at some other admiral. Be it Fujitora or Kizaru. Brother, do something yourself for once. Do you really have to unwind for over 2 years after the war? Did Whitebeard you up that bad? My man really went from one of the most intimidating villains to the Celestial Dragon's accountant. How is this guy supposed to grow stronger and become one of the final villains when all he does is chomp cigars and file complaints? His biggest feat post-time skip is handling the pain at the tattoo parlor. If you don't want to fall off, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Then you'll get a glow up instead. Our next character didn't just fall off, he dove off the freaking red line. You know, Smoker was such a badass when he was first introduced. He had this billower bike, which is just objectively cool. Smoker was also the first Logia user we ever saw. He showed Luffy that it's not all about punching hard. That doesn't work on everyone. And if Dragon hadn't stepped in and helped him, Luffy's journey might have literally ended right there, and we'd all be doing something more important right now. But Smoker wasn't the man to give up. After intercepting some calls, he managed to track the Straw Hats to Alabasta, and he seemed dead set on capturing Luffy. He failed that time too, because Luffy got help from Dunkin' Donut, but it seemed like Smoker could become a real rival to Luffy. Maybe he could even become what Garp was to Roger. Boy, how wrong we were. After that, I guess you thought that chasing Luffy was pretty hard, so I'ma just capture some fodder for a while, because we didn't see him for some 100 chapters until Marineford. And what did he do there? He tried to stop Luffy again, but he got absolutely smogged by Boa. Are you noticing a pattern here? Every time Smoker was close to getting Luffy, a strong ally of his saved him. You almost feel bad for the guy. But up to this point, I bet most people in the fandom still respected him, and maybe there was still hope for him. That would all change in Punk Hazard. Before this arc, Oda must have been thinking to himself, how can I make this man lose all his aura, look as weak as possible, and be a complete bum within just one arc? Because my man was on the ground for the majority of it. He got defeated by Law in like 2.5 panels, and Law stole his heart. No wait, not like that, like literally out of his body. Then he got to experience being a woman for a while, before getting choked by Caesar and left on the ground again. Later on, he definitely looked stronger during his fight against Virgo, even flexing some of the new haki he learned. But before he could get too excited, Virgo roasted his entire fighting style and finished him off with a bamboo staff. And the verbal abuse didn't end there. He called Smoker talentless and a disgraceful leader to his men. Like, come on, at this point you're beating the Smokers a bum into our heads with a giant hammer. And after all that, we're still not done, because Doflamingo had to show up just to personally fold him like a lawn chair. And Smoker only survived because Aokiji happened to be in the neighborhood. Bro went from dealing with people who rescued Luffy to having to be rescued himself. It's harder to think of a bigger fall from grace than this. In fact, I can only think of one. And this next one hits me the hardest. And I simply can't think about it without getting irritated. Because I used to love Chopper, to the point that he was one of my favorite characters pre-time skip. I recently rewatched Drum Island, and let me tell you, there are few arcs that are that touching. According to me, it might be the most underappreciated one in all of One Piece. And that is largely because of Chopper. His struggle with identity, being cast away by both the reindeers and the humans, until Hiruluk found him, and their relationship is just amazing to watch. And the absolute lengths Chopper was willing to go to save him. And that cherry blossom at the end, dog, tears were shed. And even after that, he was out there in Alabasta and Skypiea, actually conquering his fears, utilizing his different forms, and having creative fights. He felt like a real character with real problems. And then we hit Enies Lobby, peak fiction. Chopper backed into a corner, decides to pop a third rumble ball, and goes full monster point. He really becomes the thing he spent his whole life being called, just to save his friends. It was raw, it was symbolic, man, it was everything. You looked at that and thought, yeah, this reindeer is built different. But then the time skip hit, and Oda's marketing team must have looked at their most marketable plushie and said, you know what, he doesn't need to be a character anymore. Post time skip Chopper didn't just stop growing, he started actively shrinking. His unique form-switching combat style mostly replaced by one boring kung fu point. I can't stand it. His incredibly powerful monster point that actually meant something every time he used it, now reserved for clearing out random goons. And worst of all, we didn't even see when he learned to control it, when he fully embraced to be a monster. That just happened sometime off screen. His compelling struggle got flattened into 3 mascot traits. He gets mad if you call him a pet, he loves cotton candy, and he slaps band-aids on people. He's been a background character for almost all of post-time skip. His only real impactful moment came in Wano, when he cured the Oni virus. But even that was more of a medical feat than a character moment. And just like that, the layered character of Tony Chopper became a mascot. Let me know if you all want a part 2 of this, and also which characters you want me to talk about. I've heard that these videos on screen are really good. You should listen to my sources.